Welcome, everybody, to the Onward VR Master League Group A Round Robin. My name is NightFiree with 2 E's. I am joined by my co-caster, SnooperFax. How are you today, Snooper?
Pretty good. I'm ready to see some top-tier Onward from some of our best teams. How about you?
I am very excited today. We have a amazing match to kick things off today. It is BossFight versus G-Man, and we talked about these teams in our pre-show. They are obviously both veteran teams that have been around for quite a while, and teams that don't get to face off very often. That's something we didn't really bring up, is that there is an EU versus NA sort of gap, I guess you could call it, where these teams don't get to play each other, maybe if not at all, the entirety of a season. You know, BossFight and G-Man rarely get to see each other and play each other and face off in that same sort of play style. You know, what are your thoughts just on what we're going to see today? I mean, I guess we can take a look at the pick bans in a second here, but just off the gate, Snooper.
Well, BossFight's a team that really likes to play their long-range and medium-range maps, so we're talking Downfall, Quarantine, and if they get on those maps, they're definitely at an advantage, considering they have a lot of sniper players, especially players that know how to play in the mid to long range. So put them on a long-range map, your team's in trouble just because you're not usually equipped for that.
Yeah, it certainly becomes a challenge. Very interested to see how G-Men deal with the range. And like we can get a perspective on all of this when we take a look at pick bans. You know, and coming in from BossFight, we have the cargo ban. We talked about G-Men being very strong on that map, so no surprise there. And coming in from G-Men, we have the quarantine ban. We did sort of suspect them to ban that because something that they don't favor, and we were talking about how BossFight are certainly a threat on it. The first map of the day is going to be then BossFight's pick, and BossFight is going to kick things off on map number 1, just as we expected, on Downfall. So out the gate, our pre-show prediction's pretty good so far, Snooper.
Yeah, BossFight loves their long-range maps. They're probably a little down that they lost Quarantine, but they can definitely make it up in some of the other maps, especially with Cargo being banned.
Yeah, I mean, Bazaar is right there, you know, as well. It's on that sort of map pool. Granted, I think G-Men get the map choice going into the next map, so maybe we'll probably see a Suburbia, would be my guess. But this is going to be a very interesting way to kick this series off, because I think it's going to favor BossFight, but it's anyone's call, really.
I'd agree it favors BossFight at this point. With Cargo gone, their biggest threat is pretty much off the table. Subway's a bit of a concern, but it's still got those wide open ranges, and so does Suburbia to a certain extent. So
that's true.
It plays into BossFight's playstyle very well. I mean, G-Men can certainly do very well on the rest of the maps that aren't banned, but honestly, with Cargo gone, I think BossFight happens.
This is really a must-win, though. You know, if BossFight doesn't take Downfall, the second map, you know, it's certainly going to be in the G-Men's favor. Like you said, it's going to be close quarters. It's going to be something like maybe Subway. They've been doing really well on that map lately. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that sort of brought into the field. But this is where I think we're going to see. Yeah, I think we're going to see both teams play in their comfort zone. Granted, Cargo's off the plate, but still, there are those other map pools for G-Men to dive into. And you know, if they lose 2 maps, it's not the end of the world, right? You know, granted, it certainly does put them in a rough start to the round robin. But I think this is going to be a pretty close group stage. I think there's going to be wins and losses across the matches today. I'd be surprised, honestly, if a team managed to take 2 in any of these series today, because both maybe Mayhem can take 2 from Steel Team Bravo, but again, who knows? It's such a question mark. And if you want to see that matchup, that's over on the VR Master League Twitch channel, just VR Master League on Twitch. Also, that's going out to venues, so if you want to check out venues, I highly recommend you do that if you have a quest. Dive on in and socialize a little bit while you watch the games. It's a whole lot of fun. And I mean, I think we are going to cut to a brief intermission. Should be real quick as the teams get into this lobby and ready up. Do not go anywhere. When we come back, we are going to be right in to round number 1 of this series, Boss Fight versus G-Men. I could have just bought some time there. Didn't need to cut to the intermission. Boss Fight ready to go. Some shots there on the G-Men side. And we are going to kick things off with a north-west objective in a very quick spawn. This is going to be an interesting round 1.
Yeah, this is a good place to start. The man finds McGill right off the top.
My goodness, an early couple of kills here. I don't even know if the man was particularly aiming for anyone there. He's just kind of putting out suppressive fire to that wall. He does know he tagged one, though. The call out comes in, and so G-Men off to an accurate kill count and a nice 5v4.
What you want to do on the beginning of Downfall, find the enemy team and possibly take as many of them as you can. See, it's blunted the boss fight push with only one of their members effectively off of spawn.
Yeah, fuck who cares.
Viper getting a little risky here, still peeking this hill after all of that suppressive fire that's come in from the man, all of the eyes drawn in here. It certainly is a bit of a dice roll to be checking still here at this hill. The rest of his team has rotated off, has gotten away from that LMG fire. If you look at the overhead, they managed to shift themselves way over into that almost southerly position, and I think they may have had a disconnect. I'm only seeing 2 over here.
I'm missing that last guy. I have no idea where he went, and I don't think he died, so I believe a disconnect did happen. That's the nature of PvP online gaming, is occasionally a disconnect does happen. So
a rough start for Boss Fight. They're into that 3v5 now. They managed to get themselves over to the south, but it is really just the beginning of the approach on this objective. It's a long bit of rotating they have to do to really get into that close quarters, and so many different angles you have to be concerned about. 35 checking a forward defensive position that can be taken if the enemy team wanted to get aggressive on a defensive setup, but you know, with this east objective, certainly would be a pretty rare run to have someone push all the way up over here. Boss Fight either way, just playing it safe. They have 2 minutes and 50 seconds left on the clock to work with, and they're now going for a cross that is pretty risky. It needs some suppressive fire into the windows. UC Death putting the rounds out there, 35 backing it up as UC Death makes his cross, and the 2 of them bounding across that gap very nicely with no smokes.
No, not that way.
No, I know. I'm just going to put some fire.
yeah, I'm curious as to whether Viper's going to get some corner shots on some of those defenders, but they appear to have not forgotten about him. Boss Fight's definitely in a bit of a rough spot, considering they have a lot of open territory to cross, and a lot of it is covered by G-Men.
More suppressive fire from UC Death as 35 works his way up. 35 now suppressing the windows. UC follows up on the back end, and it's just a really great bit of duo work here. If you're looking to learn anything about Onward and how to play, this is a textbook lesson for you right here on how to work with suppressive fire and move your way up. And it is needed. It is necessary. Brass to mouth is right here. He could easily peek one of these windows and have a line of sight down onto these 2, but the suppressive fire forces him to tuck in, because if he dares to check, he very well could go down.
Tendo finds Viper as he tries to cross down the mountain. G-Men seems to have a very solid defense with a lot of overlapping sight lines, and that's what you need.
Yeah, even if they can get brass to mouth, they then have the man on the back wall. They have Keisha down under. Zach's in that objective building. It's the smart way to approach, really, because essentially they're putting themselves into a 2v3. Nintendo can swing out and be a threat, but it's a risky swing for him to make, and so I don't think he's going to do that until maybe 30 seconds or something like that. But UC Death and 35 are going to have to move here with only a minute left on the clock.
There's 5 G-Men, and they know exactly where these last 2 players are. It's a rough push for BossFight right now, considering all they have to do is be hemmed in for the next 45 seconds and it's done.
35 is making his move now, pushing up on the brass to mouth angle. The man also going to have a shot here from the wall. 35's got to be wary of. In 30 seconds now, I wonder if BossFight are timing this correctly or if they're going to be rushed here. 35 is going to swing. Free Fire coming in at the toes of M35. Goes down to the man. Meanwhile, Brass gets caught out, or excuse me, Brass catches UC Death from that window position. G-Men hold with 5 alive. BossFight losing an early one and a disconnect, ultimately then losing round 1. G-Men with a bit of a lead.
So, that was a solid defense from G-Men there. I mean, they held their positions. They didn't peek out when they didn't need to, and they took every advantage of the fact that they didn't have to move. You don't have to go out of your position. Just make sure your teammates are alive and they're watching their corners, and you got it. And that's essentially what they did. They just pushed BossFight down to the last 30 seconds and forced them to move across territory they didn't want to move across. They needed more time to effectively clear those areas.
They're playing this BossFight team very well right now. It's exactly what you want to do on this map against BossFight, and it's maybe why they didn't opt to really ban this one, because they have a strategy, they have a plan of approach up against a long-range sniper like Viper, and it is don't expose yourself. Don't let the range see you at all until they need to, until they are right up on that objective. I mean, you saw all the suppressive fire into the window, onto that 2-story, forcing Volk to stay tucked into that building, but he still was holding an angle at the end of the day that they had to cross. He could still stay in cover, and the angle was a lot tighter. It was a lot closer to objective. It certainly is riskier, in the age of trades and whatnot. If you were to trade there, it does leave open a pretty big gap in coverage, but still, really nice bit of work from BossFight to get to where they did, but ultimately G-Men with a solid hold. We'll see if BossFight can replicate that as we hop into round 2 of map 1.
Looks like mirrored spawn, so Marsoc gets the same spawn as BossFight did. Could be an interesting start if a lot of pre-fire comes out like before and they lose members on the push out, because that definitely affects how fast you can get out.
North spawn. I got a hit on one of them. One cross towards cross house east. Take hotel if you can. Yeah, that's totally fine.
Here's some comms there from Viper. He's got the Overwatch on the back end, trying to sort of regulate the team, and he's getting fed a little bit of information from his defense. But if you take a look at this defensive setup, it's pretty reserved. It's pretty tucked in. They are all holding sort of similar lines of sight to that of G-Men's defense. The real glaring difference is Scooby-Doo, who is playing pretty aggressively and has managed to get up into a pretty forward defensive position.
He's in an actually very solid position, even though it'll turn into a 1v3 here soon enough. He's got a lot of cover in there. He can see up the canyon, and he can see if they make it past him. If they try and get to red car or that 3-story, he can see all of that and basically be in an advantageous, cover position, considering he has full cover. There's nothing penetrable there. He can tuck in. He's got a few windows to poke out of. Scooby's in a solid spot.
Yeah, and he's going to stay tucked in there. I doubt he ends up peeking down into the south. And so you really don't usually check this building when you're making this cross. The threat comes from that window that we saw them suppress when BossFight tried to work their way out here. So Scooby could play a really late spot and catch some exposed backs if he's fortunate enough. And he's going to see potentially the likes of Zach, Keisha, and the man working themselves up into the South Ravine.
Yeah, I think he's going to stay tucked in, stay hidden until they try and cross that big, wide open territory, and then make his move, so to speak.
I mean, This is why I love the postseason. That's a brand I've never seen that spot before taken up on this position. You know, this is the likes of BossFight innovating at a time when it matters most, and it very well could get at least the man here. Scooby is gonna peek. He sees the man there. Keisha working himself up, and Scooby maybe just gonna click, and I don't think he voiced anything there. I just saw a click to the radio.
Yeah, probably an information play. He's probably going to wait at this point until their backs are to him and then maybe get some kills while they're distracted with a firefight with his teammates. And information definitely plays a big role in Onward. If you're new, oftentimes, especially in an experienced game like this, you want to give out those positions more than you want to get that initial kill. There it is. He finds Zach Fontaine's rear.
Right here, front room, up the dump.
Now they're in trouble, and Nate Legel finds Nintendo there. A great nade tossed out, gets Keisha. His nade's going to confirm him. Oh no, it's a pair of flashes. The man completely blind. Scooby is going to push up and swing out. The man prone does go down. A huge pair of kills coming in from Scooby.
And it all comes down to the last man on the hill. And unfortunately, with 1 minute and 30 seconds, he's got a lot of territory to cover with not much cover to do it in. So, good luck.
Brass checks his pad, realizes what just happened. A great nade, a great flash, gets the man. Very nice swing there, and a huge double. I mean, to deny entry from that south side is very important, considering, I think, how this BossFight defense is set up. He was very much the one that was supposed to tag that. Now Radar trying to find shots on Brass.
50 seconds left, and he's got to move down that hill.
To north of town.
Yep. And he finds them.
I mean, look, we've talked about it. You know, the Viper threat is there when he has that range, and it's even more so on defense because he can sort of set up, get those long range angles early, and have that sort of line of sight set up very at the start of the round. And we just went 5 back-to-back there. BossFight didn't lose a single defender and have now tied things up 1-1. If I know Onward and we use this as an indicator, Snooper, we're in for a heck of a series.
Yeah, trading back and forth on defense, that can easily rack up a lot of rounds.
I guess just more on the lines of that the scoreline so similar, you know, despite just losing one so heavily, BossFight bounced back so well on that defensive round. You know, there's not going to be any sort of one-sidedness to this series. I think it's going to be pretty dang close, and these teams are going to be battling it out pretty hard. Scooby with 3 kills there, and again, just to look at the little bit of tail end of that replay, didn't catch the nade, but he throws the nade onto the crate there, and then, you know, you see a great rotation, you know, a very nice swing onto the edge, catching out the man who's flashed down. Really solid bit of work there from Scooby, and that triple just completely threw a wrench into that G-Men defense. Offense. Otherwise, they were looking pretty good. They had 4 pinching in on objective at the same time. Both teams readied up and close spawn identified as we hop into round number 3.
Hey, Max. Yep. Thank you.
I'm running to the ball.
An early pickup there from Viper. He snags one on the backside or on the corner there. Does give away their spawn, and now they're into a bit of an interesting bind, if you will. Brass to Mouth and Keisha have taken control of the center 3 story, and they can pose a serious threat to this offense from this position. Brass's position, a very powerful one. He can peek out the windows right out onto their spawn and watch any sort of early push out from that spawn position. And in fact, might catch Viper. No, he gets caught out by the likes of Viper. A nice prone snipe shot, and you have got to be wary of the sniper.
Now it's interesting that G-Men pushed the way they did, considering they were very aware of where the spawn was, and that is the quick spawn on this objective. So it was a bit of a gamble to run back, and especially to run where Brass went. So I do have to question the wisdom in it. BossFight definitely took advantage of that fact and got 2 kills.
Impressive fire coming in. BossFight playing this one pretty reserved out the gate. They are still, for the most part, in their spawn. If you take a look at the overhead, you do have Scooby-Doo rotating around over into the east, and you have Legel who's pushed in to this 3-story. Now it's the question of how he wants to approach this, because he has to go up against Keisha in close quarters, which is always going to be a difficult challenge.
I don't think Keisha's aware. Well, he's watching the door like someone is in the building, so
Yeah.
perhaps.
I think Legel just radioed in something there, so now Keisha's very aware. You can see him kind of dialed into these stairs.
I don't know.
Yeah, he definitely hears Legel coming in there inside this 2-story. But we've talked about this in the pre-show. Keisha can either radio in, hey, there's someone inside this 3-story, or he can play silent, play it quiet, not radio in anything to his team, and take the one-on-one. If he loses, it's information lost. If he wins, it's a kill.
Perhaps he's relying on the man to cover his position, because the man has a pretty good view into that 3-story, especially on the exit to the 3rd story, so he can do some good cover. But the man is also pretty exposed. We can see the lasers just bouncing across his position, so if he really sits up there and tries to get some accurate shots, there's a lot of BossFight members that can get that refrag.
Yeah, and you gotta worry about Scooby-Doo, who did take up that east spot and is lasered in here to the man peeking this hill. Scooby definitely aware of that position. Legel now deciding to move up into that 2nd floor, soon to be potentially challenging Keisha if he does go down to the bottom floor and work himself up the stairs. Keisha is still wary. He wants to check other angles too. You know, he wants to take a look at Viper's position, but it is a risk for him to expose himself at all.
It seems like G-Men are pretty locked into their positions. The man knows he can't poke out there too long. And Keisha doesn't have any view. Of course, Nintendo's tucked in his corner, and if they try and move, I'm pretty sure they'll get picked out. Oh, and a team kill comes out from UC Death onto LaGill. Not ideal, especially if you're trying to take that 3-story. You definitely want the numbers.
You know, I think they're probably content with the man just kind of doing what he's doing over there in the south. Just let him sit there while the rest of this BossFight team makes moves. They are now all inside this 3-story. Keisha still hasn't radioed anything in because he values his silence over anything. And a nice drop shot off of the top floor from Keisha. Snags one. Viper pushing up, and in an interesting spot. He's caught out now. It's Keisha. Maybe he didn't know he was behind him. He's trying to push up onto a higher altitude and find a shot down into Keisha. He's got Scooby on the overwatch, and Viper is pushing up into a nice bit of positioning here. 30 seconds left, and he's crashing down to objective. The man so drawn in, doesn't get Viper. Viper's pat out. Nintendo's here. He's tucked into the corner. Nintendo rotating quickly. Viper can't get it in. Scooby finds one. 15 seconds left, and now Scooby has to do it all on his own, and Keisha finds the final kill. G-Men hang on with 2 left alive.
Very dangerous to let a BossFight member that close to your objective. He wasn't there for long, but I was convinced a code was going in.
Yeah, I mean, he had, for a team like that, they had enough time. You know, realistically, BossFight has players on there that can punch in codes in seconds, you know, and it takes a lot. It takes, I mean, you know, I'm getting excited. These players are getting excited. Their hands shake sometimes, and it factors into if you're entering in an accurate code, you know, in a pressure situation. And so can't blame Viper for not getting it in. He would really have to be punching it in as he's running, too, if you wanted to really optimize that. But, I mean, a near cap, and G-Men just able to deny it. Nintendo, thankfully, there. If he wasn't, and they maybe had some sort of Overwatch to suppress Nintendo. Who knows what happens there?
There was only 3 BossFight members left on the field, so there's questionable cover on the objective, and he just tried to dunk it, and sometimes it doesn't work, especially when the defense is crashing down on the objective and they know you're coming. The man was definitely giving call-outs, definitely giving fire, so it was chaos at the end at best.
That one a bit closer than our previous matches, that's for dang sure. The previous rounds. That's to say, though, I guess on this objective, it doesn't surprise me. You know, with the quick spawn that they did have, they are so close to the objective out the gate, and we'll see what sort of spawn G-Men get to start with here as we hop into round number 4 of map 1.
Yeah, it's close spawn.
Another mirrored spawn again.
Close spawn, guys. Be ready for close spawn.
35. I want to extend now.
Yeah. Which way, Scoop, you want?
And that is a wild act of confidence. They know they got identified because they weren't prone at the start, and they actually shot their gun before round began to really hone in the fact that they are here. They do not care, and suppressive fire is coming in. This could be a bit of a quick round here from the likes of G-Men if Keija can crash up to that objective, because ultimately, I guess they have a couple of good angles. They have a decent kill box, but a lot of eyes drawn to the spawn right now instead of maybe objective, which is, I'm sure, what Keija is going to try and threat early.
1 center hotel.
BossFight have quite a bit of angle on them. Lonely Viper can definitely prevent anyone going up onto the hill, so they might have just forced G-Man into a corner, and fighting out of a corner is something you never really want to do.
Airburst is a bit short there onto Keija. They try to catch him with a couple of nades, but he is going to be cemented in there with a lot of other angles drawn in. Brass to mouth looking for something onto UC Death, and very curious to see what the G-Men approach is going to be. Zach and the man still back at spawn, working their way across. Maybe they're going to end up rotating in from the east with Nintendo.
Ooh, a headshot from Viper on Tendo as he comes around the corner, and the hill is held by only one BossFight member, and that's going to keep the rest of G-Men down on the end of the hill. They don't have much other routes to go besides forward or perhaps further south.
They really like this road, though, I can tell you that. They are all working themselves up slowly and surely up onto this road, and it's not going to be an easy one to work through. They got the likes of Leggle, who has a pretty good angle, UC Death with a decent one. Scooby-Doo can pop up from the roof, have his line of sight as well. Granted, the man is suppressing him.
I'm pretty sure Scooby's just there to give out information.
Two hotel.
.35 threatening from a few different angles. Keija identified 2 in here, and what could have been a near team kill there doesn't happen. Good bit of patience there. Scooby-Doo nearly kills 35. That almost went down, and that's the real risk of not communicating everything, of trying to stay silent, is that if you have, you know, a few teammates there as well, they have to be quick on identifying you based off of just solely your color. There's no nameplates, there's no lasers, there's nothing other than knowing what a MARSOC uniform and what a Volk uniform look like to identify your enemies and teammates.
Seems Viper missing the man, rotating around on the mountain. Oh, what a kill shot from Zach Fontaine and Keija onto 35.
You see Death holding his angle, finally catches one. Brass goes down. Scooby still in here, can threaten the likes of Keija. Keija hasn't cleared out this 3-story just yet.
He definitely hears all that running around, and he's probably very suspicious.
Yeah, the only question he's got to have in his head is, you know, he could be on the roof. you know, based off of the audio cues, Scooby could technically be above him on the, you know, on the roof right now, and so it's going to be a matter of if Keisha's going to predict Scooby to be in this corner or not, and Scooby is going to play off the audio cues from Keisha. Keisha gets the kill inside the two-story, the master of close quarters battling, and now G-Men into a 3v3.
And that's what you... Oh, and Viper finds the man as he rotates around the mountain, but back to Keisha's kill. I mean, that's what you want to do when you don't exactly know where the other person is. You hear the audio cues, but you're not sure. Try and lure him to you. Then you know where he is. He's coming at you.
30 seconds left. G-Men gonna be running out of time here. UC Death nearly catching one into the shoulder. And Lego gonna be the real linchpin here. Unless they work themselves around this wall like Zach's trying, Lego going to have a good angle. Down goes one. Keisha tries to find the kill off of those shots from the window. And now, as the last one alive, he's simply suppressing from the two-story, and it's not gonna be enough. 10 seconds down, and all BossFight gotta do is tuck in for a round win, and we'll tie things up 2-2.
Keisha knew he couldn't get there. I think his best hope was maybe BossFight would pop out and get some kills, but BossFight, they're veteran teams, and they know not to do that. They just tuck in, let the round timer get out, run out, and get that point.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we caught one kill there from Viper at the start, and I do want to talk about this position because I do think it is really powerful. You know, where he managed to move up early into that initial spot was very impressive, and he caught Nintendo out right away. From that window, he was able to easily snag that first kill, and then he caught more. He got the man, and he shut down that east rotation, which I think is huge, because if they have control of the east, then they can suppress down onto objective while the rest of the team moves up. Lego would have been in a good spot still. UC Death ultimately would have been in a good spot still, but I mean, we saw what Viper could do when he worked in from the east, and so it's dangerous to leave it open, and it's why he then ultimately went up there and held it. He knew the effects, the power that east push holds on this objective. So a very good job from BossFight to hold on there and keep things close. But I mean, geez, the last two rounds, things have started to kick off. These teams are trying stuff. They're experimenting with new positions, and it is bringing things down to a couple of close scenarios. We'll see. I mean, are their next objective? I've seen capped on quite a bit lately, to be honest.
This one's definitely a bit, I'd say, easier for the offense to move to. You have a more variable movement pattern that you can go through. You can go through the south, you can go through the east, you can go through the northeast. And you have a lot of cover in those areas. You can even effectively move around and just get some great angles to pick off the defense before they even realize you're there.
Yeah. Yeah, you can be a very powerful early threat, and depending on the spawn, you can catch out a couple of early rotations. They do get the same spawn they just had last objective, that far northwest positioning, and I'm curious to see how the likes of G-Men go set up, on this defense as we hop into round 5.
Hell yeah.
Seen earlier.
Early shots from UC Death are gonna expose their spawn, so now to be wary of a northwest spawn, and so I think the early kill opportunities have come and gone. BossFight have managed to get set up into some decent spots right away. 35 Scooby-Doo in the center looking for some kills, as a matter of fact. And if anything, maybe BossFight are trying to draw out some defenders here from that suppressive fire from UC Death.
I think they're a little, I guess, the fog of war is blinding them to where the defense is, so they're trying to lure some people out. And Brass to Mouth is putting some fire down, and of course, here comes the responding fire. That's exactly what BossFight wanted to see. They know where Brass is, and they're going to keep him pinned, if not try and kill him.
Suppressive fire from UC Death, and in the age of zero smoke, suppressive fire, I think, is king. BossFight have clearly discovered that they've been using it frequently and often in their offensive maneuvers. and it holds its risks certainly, but I think it's great work. It's great research, if you will, on the boss fight end. They know they have range superiority with a sniper like Viper, and so maybe they feel a little bit more comfortable investing in an LMG just to shoot out early. Because if they look for that LMG, then they got to be worried about exposing themselves to a sniper rifle.
And here comes the signature boss fight air drone. I don't think I've seen a match where they haven't used it, and they love to get information from it, and that's exactly what they need right now. They need to figure out where that defense is, not just brass. They need to find out the whole G-Man defense. And then once they can figure that out, they can start taking it apart. That's what we've seen BossFight do time and time again.
The drone sitting here over the roof. Keisha trying to shoot it through the hole in the wall, but I don't know if that hole in the wall is penetrable. They can certainly see through it, though, so Keisha getting identified inside this building right now. You can see Legal dialed in. And also the audio disruption coming in here. 35 could push up if he wants, and Keisha wouldn't be able to be hearing any sort of footsteps onto his position.
I think the goal has been achieved for BossFight. They now know where at least 4 members of G-Man are, if not all of them, depending on what they saw with that drone. So we can see the laser scanning over almost all of the G-Man positions, except maybe Nintendo. I think he's still the X factor here, but you have to find it hard to believe that BossFight doesn't expect one G-Man player to be on the objective.
Brass holding down the east approach, which was getting utilized by the likes of Scooby and UC Death. UC Death has opted to rotate into the inside, and it seems BossFight is aware of their time. It is still 5-5 right now. Nobody has gone down yet, and there's a minute and a half left in this round. There's been tons of shots made. The man peeking that hilltop getting shot at there by Viper. Can't quite tag him. But Legal is getting danger close, as is UC Death. The timing a bit off as the drone goes down, but he's working in on the suppressive fire, which is also giving an audio cue. The nade comes in, forces Keisha out of the building. A nice toss. But a minute left, and Keisha's a real threat here. He's shutting down this east. They have to get rid of him if they want to work themselves up. At the same time, they're distracting Keisha plenty for the likes of Legal to work his way up. The man getting shot at by that sniper, it does come down in essence to a 1v1 for Legal and Nintendo if everyone is distracted appropriately, and I wonder if that's what BossFight's going to try and do. UC Death's going to try and work his way in on Keisha. That's not going to work out for UC. Keisha finds one. Zach scoops up 35. Legal takes a bit of shoulder meat onto Keisha, but doesn't quite kill him yet, and now Legal's position's known. 30 seconds left.
30 seconds is going to be very dangerous. Can Miguel get there? No, he can't. The man finds him.
Scooby does find the kill. 15 seconds down he goes from Zach Fontaine in the White House. The man scoops up Lonely Viper trying to push objective with limited time. And G-Men with 4 left alive secure a solid defensive round. And the back and forth between the Volk rounds continues.
Yeah, these are 2 evenly matched teams. They know how to watch their fire, how to make sure that, you know, no one's going to slip through the gaps and get a sneak cap. They are watching every open zone they can, and then they're luring in the defense, making sure that they have to cross certain places, and they have 1 or 2 players out in random positions that once BossFight figured out where Keisha was, they essentially had to stop and eliminate him before they moved forward.
Yeah, it's certainly been a solid approach on both ends, really. You know, I love to see BossFight working with that suppressive fire, trying to get closer. But again, when you look at the G-Men defense, they came ready. They knew BossFight were going to pick this map. They knew they probably had an idea of what the ban. They probably knew, okay, look, they're going to ban cargo on us. We're going to ban quarantine, and then we'll work with that. At the same time, BossFight probably realizing the same thing. Maybe they suspected a downfall ban would be the only thing that I think G-Men have an advantage on, is that maybe BossFight anticipated the downfall ban. But now that they're here, G-Men are bringing out the strategy of just staying tucked in. They're not exposing themselves very early. 5 left alive there on both sides when it came down to a minute and a half, and that doesn't work for the BossFight strategy in a lot of in most cases. You know, you're forced into the close quarters battles that G-Men excel at, and it makes it a bit tougher to approach objective when you're forced into that sort of situation on a map that is arguably mostly long range. We'll see how BossFight defend as we hop into our next round, round number 6 of the first map.
Don't get shot in the cross.
Remember, I'll be matched with Doctor.
If you stay, Viper, I'm gonna call you boulder if it's close one. Boulder. Flip back, Viper. Go to the bottom of the valley. Go to the bottom of the valley.
One RNT1.
So we can see BossFight is spread out to use the range to their advantage. They've got 3 up on the hill, and they know exactly where G-Man spawns, so it's essentially making sure they can't move out of there. G-Man does look like they have 1 player successfully getting out of the corner, but the rest of them are bottled up in that 3-story. And one, I think that's Brass hiding all the way in the corner.
A little over the wall suppressor fire from the man on the 2-story. Brass Keisha working themselves into this bottom floor here, and they are close to objective. You know, they're not terribly far away, and it really does come down to UC and 35 holding this thing down, because if they get scooped up, then it's some big rotations from the defense. Legel has to get down here. Scooby has to get down here. Viper still has his angle, but Legel's not going to have an easy time coming out there with the suppressive fire he'd experienced, and so some very important defensive positions here from UC Death and 35. Keisha crosses out. UC Death certainly identifying this.
One off the red car on the main street.
A lot of feeler shots, a lot of stuff that mostly just trying to get a response, and Keisha finds UC Death clearing out the objective. I'd argue BossFight's now in a very dangerous position, even though they only lost 1 player. All they have is 35 and Viper effectively guarding the objective.
Yes, they do. The suppressive fire is coming in from Legel. They're trying to get it, but there's the man. Keeping Legel tucked in. 35 still here, but Keisha has pushed up, and I gotta wonder if 35 is just playing this one real patiently, because what he can do is swing and check the window and have a great line of sight onto the objective push if they try and make it. The man finally gets Legel, so that's some big suppressive fire paying off. I'm very interested to see what this push is going to look like. Viper is here, eyes on, shots coming in over to Nebraska mouth. 2.5 minutes left, though. G-Men have so much time to work with, and they're in a 43.
G-Men knows where Viper is. They don't know where 35 is, and that's very dangerous considering 35 can ambush from that 2nd story.
Dead on you. This one dead on.
Keisha seems to be hearing 35 here. He's going to check the corner. 35 takes the shots. Keisha wins that one. The nade comes in, goes a bit far. Brass gets that confirmed there, and Viper is still trying to pick up the shots onto the wall, but a ton of suppressive fire coming in. The objective seemingly exposed, but Scooby's managed to push himself up against the wall. And we'll see if Keisha is ready for that. Scooby takes shots towards Nintendo. Keisha looking for the kill. Down he goes. The major threat on objective gets scooped up, and now 1.5 minutes for the rest of this team to work themselves up. Keisha, perfect spot to call out everything so they can identify anyone that tries to rotate. Scooby's position completely exposed. But still, the 2 left alive have great lines of sight down onto objective with 1:15.
My gun bugged out.
Still very dangerous with 3 G-Man up. Keisha's giving solid call-outs. Brass basically knows exactly where Scooby and Viper are, and I don't doubt the rest of G-Men do too. So if they just get the kills, they can take the map.
Minute left. Brass charging in here. Scooby's rotated and tucked in. Brass tries to get Pat out. Scooby scoops him up, and a big rotation from Scooby denied by Nintendo. Now Radar the only one left alive, and I think he's got a bugged rifle. So if anything, he's going to have to charge in with limited utility here. Nintendo IDs Viper early. Shots come in. A fantastic shot from Viper. He ducks back down. The man tries to take shots up overhead. 30 seconds left. Viper has to tuck in and then challenge the objective. The man realizes there's a gap in coverage. He's charging in towards OBJ. This is going to be an interesting bit of 25 seconds left. Viper's going to swing on the wide side. The man hears those footsteps. Suppressive fire comes in. The flash tries to come out. He can't get his pistol up in time. The man charges and challenges, gets the kill, and G-Men secure downfall against BossFight. Map 1 goes to them.
I'm very impressed that G-Man was basically able to force BossFight into close to mid-range battles almost every map. I didn't see a single snipe from Viper or any of the usual snipers on BossFight, which that just goes to show the tactical skill of G-Men pulling their enemy to them.
Yeah, they forced the close quarters engagement on a map that is incredibly hard to do, and they did a great job with suppressive fire. You know, again, that seemed to be a key element for both teams in their advance. The 2 rounds that BossFight did win, I think it was because they got a sniper kill early, or Viper did play a key element. Scooby had a great position in one of their round wins, and I mean, Viper almost bring it back there. He had a great shot on a Nintendo. I think again he had a bugged rifle, so he's trying to work on a limited utility out kit there, and a solid back and forth. A great round 1 on downfall, and now we go get to the close quarters, as we suspected, right? You know, with the likes of G-Men on this table, and they got at least 1 map pick. We're gonna see something that's close quarters, and for map 2, we're gonna be heading to Suburbia.
Another relatively close range map. In most situations, it's gonna be a close quarters battle. But when it comes to defense, especially some of those longer range streets, and especially when it comes to the spawn house objective, which we have now that's over by the tank, it definitely plays more into BossFight's long range strategy. You put snipers up into the houses, and then you just watch all of the lanes from a sort of a medium to long range distance. You can hold down this objective pretty well. It's just the danger is if you lose a side, you're going to have part of that tank exposed, and you can cap on either side of that tank.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's Suburbia as a whole, certainly a exciting map to be watching both of these teams duke it out on. It does, everything seems to be in order as G-Men did pick this map. We'll have BossFight starting off on the defense, and that worked out pretty well for G-Men. They had that defensive start on downfall, and we're getting a role reversal here. We're now seeing what BossFight can do on G-Men's territory, and I really wonder if we're going to get sort of that same sort of thing if BossFight are going to be coming into this one a bit more practiced, because again, they're able to sort of predict what the cadence is going to look like. And you have to put your hours into every map, right? You have to practice Subway as well, and also Bazaar, and but I'm very interested to see what BossFight's defensive and offensive setups look like against G-Men, knowing that G-Men are going to prefer this close quarters combat.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if Viper brings his typical sniper rifle, but
right.
Not to say he isn't lethal with it on this map. It's just I don't think it's very effective, especially since the longer range shots are sort of few and far between. You generally want to have that extra ammo, maybe an LMG or just even a typical rifle with, a 2x or 4x scope. I think is a little more effective. But we'll see what BossFight, we'll see how they set up, see how they play. I mean, whether they alter their strategy or not, we don't know.
Indeed, and I think we're not going to go to an intermission, because I'm assuming this is going to be starting pretty shortly, but can give a brief shout out to a sponsor that you've been seeing so far on my camera, at the very least, the HyperX Cloud 2 wireless headset and the HyperX Quadcaster with RGB lighting. It's pretty spiffy stuff. That's the word we're looking for. It's got a fantastic bit of a customization on the coloring scheme. Obviously, I've gone with VRML Onward colors for my mic today, but you can change it to whatever you want. It's got that full RGB spectrum. obviously good mic quality, as it's been what you've been hearing me come through to you guys all day today, and it's what's going to be my mic for the foreseeable future because I've really been enjoying it. I like the RGB. You look at Asterian's mounts as well. You want to talk about RGB, they're a great little bit of utility. I mean, you could really kit out your play space with all the chromes. But that'll be for another time, because right now you got to sit down and get ready for the start of this map. We did get a false start there. So now my intro's ruined. Now we can get started as we dive in to map number 2, round number 1, G-Men versus BossFight on Suburbia.
All right, chances are somebody's going to be hiding in a playground in the box.
Early bit of pre-fire can catch out the spawn point there if G-Men decided to push in from that angle, but you hear a bit of banter from G-Men. It's something that they are very well aware of. That threat there would certainly not go. I doubt they would ever get caught out by that kind of pre-fire. Scooby has pushed up into a nice spot though and may be able to catch out Nintendo or Brass, who work themselves up through these bushes over on the west side.
Enemies lane 1.
Do you think that has been called out by
Yep.
BossFight? A lot of information going out between all the players, especially BossFight there in the center, just giving out a ton of information to their compatriots.
Just had a disconnect on G-Men's end. They're down to 4, so it strikes on both sides. As you see here, the struggles of an online event sometimes rear their ugly head, but either way, a disconnect you got to play through, and Scooby getting threatened by a couple of nades certainly has eyes on it when he made those call-outs on the positions here. And Zach and the man are swinging out pretty wide here. They don't seem to be aware of him. Down goes one. The man doesn't rotate fast enough here. Does get to deny actually a couple of bullets there. But call-outs coming in from Scooby. Keisha looking for something on the back end. Can't quite get it. Now he has to push up. Finds the angle. Down goes Scooby.
G-Men are still a little bit blinded by the fact that all they know is 35 and Legilla are in the center, and that's it. They once they get to the other street, they don't know where Lonely, Viper, or UC Death is. They haven't even fired a single shot. They've just been receiving information from their teammates, and I'm pretty sure BossFight has an accurate kill count, so they know that there's only 2 G-Men left on the field.
Viper's not going with any sights on his gun here today. On the back end, he's got that assault rifle. He'll be looking for maybe some shots through some wood or through some bushes, trying to deny that shield push that the man's going to try and work out over on the east.
Ooh, and the man finds 35, discards the shield for a second there, and the res goes out. G-Men are back up to 3. Wow.
Yeah, they were up to 4. A quick kill from UC Death onto that shield. A big denial of that east push. Makes things a bit more difficult for the likes of G-Men. Keisha finds a confirm onto the down body there, and now we're into a 3v3. Lego pretty aware of the 2 behind him. And that's it. There's not a third. The UI is bugged because of that disconnect. So G-Men are into the 2v3.
Clear it.
No.
With a minute and 30 seconds left, those last two G-Men players have a lot to do. They got to clear that center house, and then they got to find UC Death and Lonely Viper.
There's one on the front, I think, in the corner that watches every burning.
Yeah, and they don't seem to know Lego's up here. He's just thinking they're in a different spot in the front.
Oh, dead.
Oh, Keija finds LeGill, and they take center house. They don't have a lot of time to hang out there, though, so they got to gather their information and get their kills, or at least get to the objective and cap.
Good pickup on the brass in the second floor there. A nice shutdown, and now Keija all on his lonesome. Going to try and work against Viper and UC Death, and they have that street covered, so it's going to be a big cross that's going to be hard to make.
And UC Death knows exactly where Keija is, so that's being communicated. And there he is. He finds him in the playground.
The Volk rounds continue to be traded. The only Marsoc going into the hands of G-Men last round. But either way, things are remaining to be pretty close in this series. It's Group A. This is what I expected, right, Snooper?
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of trades on defense. We'll see some interesting, I guess, offensive plays. We certainly saw one win on Marsoc on Downfall. So it's not impossible. It's just the objective really has to support it when it comes to this level of play.
A solid hold there from BossFight. Very well done. And shout out to everyone that's been tuning in today. If you are stopping by here, make sure you're also got twitch.tv/VR Master League up, because that is where the other set of games is being played right now. And you got Noman and Sleepy over there delivering you that action. So if you want to check out how the Dark Horse is doing up against Mayhem, get over there and check it out. Obviously not the SEAL Team Bravo, but a team that I really don't know what to expect out of. So it's a big question mark, and I want to be watching that series, but I'm locked into this one, so I can't imagine if I'm you, the audience right now. You got probably two great series to be watching at the same time. So make sure you have the multi-streams up and get all the Onward action delivered to you at the same time. And hopefully you won't go into an Onward overdose.
Here we go, round two.
Are you on your quest, bro?
Yeah, quest 2.
Yeah.
No, I'm using the link. I'm using the link. Should just use the CV one.
Really shots coming in from the man. Scooby pushed in to a pretty forward position out the gate. Gonna try and toss his hand at a nade. I think he's trying to get that. He is. Over on the other side of the sandbags, a common defensive spot. Flash comes in as well to reinforce, and Scooby's gonna make his push to the backyard.
Got a very aggressive position in the playground.
And the problem with Scooby pushing up this far is Keija could pretty easily pick him up right now. I don't think Keija wants to expose himself just yet, though. He's got that spot where he's going to defend against the likes of Viper. He swings out and actually gets them both. Throws the nade, stands up, doesn't get anyone off the nade, but swings wide and catches two to his left. A great flash comes out. Keija completely blind. Viper's not going to challenge that one, though. Got the shield here, and he's going to stay on the defensive. He's not going to push up there, and now Keija holds control of the playground.
That's no good.
Very close grenade there, but doesn't find Keija as he successfully rotates around the hedges.
Viper seemingly ID'd some footsteps or a mic pop or some sort of audio cue from Keija there, indicating it to UC Death, and now UC maybe challenging it. The shots come in. Keisha pops up, snags a kill on the corner. Viper has some utility in his hand. He's going to try and do something about Keisha's position.
Oh, and he does it with a grenade. Cooked perfectly right over Keisha's head. Gets the confirm. It's all down to the man, Brass to Mouth, and Zach Fontaine. And Nintendo, they've only wiped out one member of G-Men, which seemed to have taken quite a bit of work.
Yeah, really a huge spot there from Keisha to get out early. And it's interesting they didn't suspect him, considering they took up a very similar defensive position themselves. So interesting to see. And now it's all up to Viper in a 1v4 against a very powerful G-Men squad right now. Certainly not going to be an easy bit of work here, but not going to count him out just yet.
Very, very impressed with how Keisha ambushed almost every member of BossFight that got taken down there. It wasn't one-on-one, head-on-head fight. It was just he found the rear and popped up, got his shots, rotated. That's what you need to do to get kills. Now, there is a question as to how much information G-Men got from Keisha during those kills. So whether they have an accurate kill count or not, I'm not sure. I didn't hear much communication from Keisha during that little battle in the playground. So Lord knows how many BossFight members G-Men think still up. But they find Lonely Viper and take the round.
Indeed, they do. Zach Fontaine from his two-story position snags him out with that shield on his back, and a good bit of work from the G-Men defense to hang on to that final, well, their first Volk round as we tie things up 1-1.
We have a new objective on the opposite ends of the street over by the red car. A much more interesting objective, considering there's no real places to sort of tuck in and get that cap securely. You really need to have dominant control of the street if you're Marsoc. And of course, if you're Volk, you have a lot of opportunities to pick people off as they try and make it to the objective.
Yeah. Yeah, it's no easy task to cross that street, and especially without smokes or suppressive fire. Just seems to be an insurmountable task there. Even with the shield, we saw both shields get denied their approach from that angle, so tough to work with. And we do shift a bit to the other side of the map, over to that red car, so curious to see what the approach looks like here, because I don't think I've seen a terribly successful one without any smokes. You know, if you can't smoke out of this objective in particular, the entry points to it are very hard to go unnoticed through. Oftentimes, defenses is holding these angles, and so it's, you know, I think maybe we're gonna see that favoritism over to that west side of the map, because they're gonna want to work themselves up and try and rotate around and get up into the north, potentially flank. I think that's gonna be the best approach, but I don't know if G-Men are gonna be able to string it together. We'll see as we hop into our next round, round 3.
I can pre-fire if you want.
Another false start.
Indeed, and if you aren't familiar, if you are in a competitive lobby, you can restart the round within the first 15 seconds of it starting, and there is no punishment. The reason being is that sometimes the player can load in with a blacked out display, or they may not load in at all, and it's important to be able to do a quick reset and be able to get right back into that next round without much delay. And so that's what just happened there, and here we are right back in to the start of round 3.
I'll wait.
Great free fire.
Have fun, guys. Remember, BossFight.
Positive attitude coming in from Viper there. Another
What are they doing?
reset.
Even shoot this time.
Don't know.
Not sure what the actual tech difficulty is over on the G-Men side, but hopefully they get it sorted out quickly. Hopefully the next load works for us, because so far this series has been a fantastic bit of back and forth. BossFight have done everything they can to hold on in this series against G-Men, and it has been a great bit of back and forth. Great Volk trade rounds. Excellent plays from both sides, just, you know, really showing off their veteran prowess. But I still don't know who's going to even win this one as we get finally again into the start of round 3.
Good luck, Jen.
Viper and Scooby working themselves over onto this west side, and it does seem to be where G-Men are going to try and make their approach. This alleyway particularly dangerous right now. Nades do come careening into this lane pretty often, so...
I
lost my syringe.
Looks like G-Men have taken the smart approach, not a direct attack across the street. They're trying to whittle their way around into the north if they can. Try and get them from the side. But it looks like BossFight's pretty dialed in. They've got a pretty good spread to make sure that, you know, if anyone comes through those lanes, they'll catch them.
They do have a lot of nice angles set up. Viper seems to be in a pretty risky spot. He can easily get peeked from the west. Scooby's not really holding that down. Nobody, in fact, it does have a line of sight onto the west. Scooby, I think, is charged with that task, but he's risking it by pushing in through lane 2 here.
Oh, and a solid trade from Keija and Scooby. First blood goes out to both teams.
Keep an eye on play. Keep an eye on play. Possibly red car. Yep, red car. He's moving into the fence right now.
The man with his typical shield strategy there, peeking out, getting some information, able to identify Viper's position and force the rotation from it because it's a risky spot to be exposed in when the west is vulnerable like this. And the man continues to work his way up against this wall here, and these shots are not coming through. 35. He plays patiently enough, maybe able to find something, but the man's across.
Yeah, Zach Fontaine is using the fact that his whole team was distracting BossFight and got really far around the bus, but got picked up by Legill.
Yeah, good denial by Legel there to snag that kill on the bus side, because that could have been another element that they are not ready for. UC Death certainly could have been vulnerable to that kind of rotation, but again, the west approach is where the attention has to be, as the man has already crossed.
Nope. Nope. Nope.
G-Man's pretty committed to this side. Perhaps Tendo could rotate back around, maybe come from a different angle, but with the way BossFight's set up, it's a tough deal, and it looks like Tendo's going to opt for rotating around, so we'll see what he finds. But the rest of G-Men, Brass to Mouth and the man, make it around to the north, and they make it to the backyards.
On me, feel on me.
Brass is here. Legel's on a rotation. Ooh, Viper finds a elbow onto the man, and down he goes. Suddenly, Brass all on his lonesome on this west end, and Legel was looking for, I think, a potential flank onto that north end. Doesn't opt for it. He needs to stay on objective as Viper goes down, and now that gap is exposed. Brass scoops up another. Shots coming in from UC onto Brass. Don't find any purchase, and now UC's in a bit of a bind. He's in a 1v2, essentially with his exposed position. Legel's still tucked in and playing a reserve defensive spot for when somebody goes down here. 50 seconds left. Oh, Lego has drone. Lego has drone. That's what he's getting info from. Brass finds one. 40 seconds left.
All down to Lego on the defense. Bravo, G-Man, whittling away those last 3 members or the last 4 members of BossFight, leaving it up to LeGill. And this is not where you want to be on defense. This is how you get capped on or get killed.
Well, he's in the right spot. He's trying to tuck back. He's forcing the cap. 15 seconds left, and it's not the right move. Nintendo has plenty of time to punch this in. He's got Pat out, and he's going for it. Lego's trying to swing. Brass is drawing his attention. 6, 5, 4. Can he get the code in time? He does.
Bravo. I mean, G-Man effectively whittled down the BossFight defense in the last minute and a half to the last member and used that to advantage to get a cap. And that's what you need on Marsoc. That's how you pull ahead. That's how you win rounds like this.
A really wild bit of decision making that Lego had to go through there. He's getting suppressed by 1. Maybe he doesn't have an accurate kill count to kick things off. And so if he doesn't have an accurate kill count, that play becomes a lot more understandable. He doesn't even know there's a second individual there. He's simply challenging the shield user, drawing his attention quite well. He knows that shield user can't push up to red car and punch code in time. And so he continues to hold back into the north and stay alive. But because he doesn't have the accurate kill count, you do see the push up to the red car and a solid bit of code punching in down to what was ultimately the last 2 seconds left on the clock. And so when you're in that kind of pressure moment, to be able to punch in the code like that and go up 3-1 is a very solid job from the likes of Nintendo to get that in. And for G-Men to be up 3-1 like this is it's exactly what they want on their map pick going into this next defensive round.
You couldn't ask for a better way to finish out a map. Defense, this objective, it really plays to the defensive strengths, and all you got to do is sit on your laurels, castle up, put some people on porches, and wait for the offense to walk by. And that's Suburbia for you, especially this objective. It's not easy. Onward's an asymmetrical game, and it's not going to be fair.
Yes, indeed. We'll see what we get from the start of our next round whenever it happens. But again, a shout out to all of you tuning in. And again, make sure you have the multi-streams up and running. We want to make sure everyone's watching all of the Onward action. You're not missing a single bit of it. Because I'm sure both games are pretty dang exciting right now. If you aren't familiar with the format, there's only 2 maps to be played here. So even if G-Men win this, it's not a guarantee that BossFight is out by any means. They still have plenty of maps to go up against. They get to face off against Mayhem, face off against SEAL Team Bravo, and so they will be getting the opportunity to put more rounds on the board. But we'll see what the plan is Marsoc-wise for BossFight here, because to go for a cap on this objective is just so hard. It's to get the opportunity to push up to the red car like they did on that objective is so rare. It only comes when you have an advantage, when you have a 2v1 advantage, when you can suppress appropriately, which is exactly what happened with Lego there. And I'm sure it's a tough one for BossFight to swallow right now, and I think we are finally going to be getting in to our next round.
Out of the corner if I were you, because it's going to be free fire.
Bit of early shooting from both sides. Drone going out for Viper. He's going to be looking for information, maybe try and spy out Keisha's position. He's at least going to force the shots, and now Keisha has to rotate out from this from this backyard.
Looks like G-Men are just tucking in, holding their castle. Keisha's being a little aggressive, but I think that's mostly for informational purposes as he's moving back. And a solid grenade from Zach Fontaine down Scooby-Doo. Tendo looks like he's going to try and take advantage of that. Another solid grenade from Tendo gets down UC Death.
Two whiskey and lean, one break.
That whole push is down now.
Yeah, West gets shut down early. No confirms just yet, so you can see the shots coming in onto Zach from 35 over the top. Those don't find anything. Nintendo didn't confirm anybody, and so 35 still does have the double res available.
One on white car.
Fontaine's hanging out over there, trying to keep an eye on those bodies, making sure no one gets the res. Or if someone goes for it, he picks them up too. And Keija team kills, and look, Gil gets the revive. Interesting turn of events.
Yeah, a bit of a swing. Oh no, 35 team kills. Down he goes, and now Scooby's concerned about 35 positioning behind him. 35 seems dialed in, and the pressure may be getting to him. Wow, 2 team kills for BossFight, and he gets picked up by Zach's nade. Oh my goodness, a chaos of unfortunate event. I mean, couldn't have gone worse for BossFight on that West approach there. Now it's all up to Viper in a 1v4.
That's what happens when you lose your focus and you start forgetting where your teammates are.
Wow. Well, there's one.
She's gonna fucking chance it.
Successfully finds Keija with no response fire. I'm surprised the man didn't try and put something over there. Viper putting a shot into the air to try and lure the view of these opponents, which seems to have worked judging by where the lasers are pointed. They're all looking at the previous place he fired as he rotates to the opposite lanes. Trying to use distraction and psychological tactics to try and find an opening in the defense. He's got 2 minutes left, so he can spend a little bit of time, especially on this map. It's much closer range, and he doesn't have a lot of open area to travel, so he can move relatively freely back there.
He may be able to find the man here if he can ID the toes. He's going to have to deal with the man, though, to push out of this lane, though.
If he does try and push, he's got Tendo and Fontaine dialed in. I don't know if he would be able to make it out of there. I think his best bet is perhaps getting a kill and then moving to another lane, and he does. He finds Zach Fontaine, and you see the re-rotation. He's got 1:17 left.
He is working this down. Couple of one-taps for Viper. Suddenly he's into a 1v2, and he's going to work himself over to the west, which is, I think, a solid lane to approach from as everyone's eyes are drawn into 2 and 3.
Being extra silent to try and make it over there. Wasting quite a bit of time doing it. Tendo would hear him if he ran, but there's a question of time at this point. You will hear the beep in 5 or 6 seconds now.
Wonder if this rotation's going to work, if he can find the angle onto the man that he needs, if he's even aware of the man's positioning. But he's going to try and go for objective. He sees maybe Nintendo. No, he doesn't. The man peeks up. The trade goes into the hands of G-Men as Nintendo stays alive, and G-Men lock in 2 in a row and go up 4-1 on map 2.
That's how you want to take it there. I mean, they sat on their defense. They made sure that if BossFight was going to get anywhere close to that objective, they had to be seen. And it worked for them. They picked out every single one of them. And unfortunately, there was a lot of tragedy on the BossFight side there, especially when it came to the team kills. It just didn't work out. It's not how you want to finish out the last map.
It is not. It is if you're G-Men, a good solid 2 maps scooped up, and they move on to their next set, which should be coming up in a few minutes. I don't know the exact timeline, but we are going to take a break because there is a lot of Onward still left today. We got another series, 2 more series after this, and then after this group stage, we have the Challenger Cup Finals, which is going to be ALG versus Animal House. It's going to be just as exciting as these matchups today here. So Onward all day. You're not going to want to miss it. Be sure to stick around, but we're going to be right back.